Bungie announced what they're planning to change for PvP. Let's talk about what this means for you as a player. Let's start with shotguns. With shotguns, the ADS speed is increased by 25%. So when you're actually aiming down the gun trying to get that boost from rangefinder, it is slower to do that. That means you have to be a little bit more prepared for an engagement if you want that range boost to proc. The next one is you actually have reduced accuracy when you're jumping. So if you're flying through the air as a Titan, if you're flying through the air as a Warlock, whatever you plan on doing, if you don't have your feet planted on the ground, you're going to have an accuracy reduction. We don't have all the details on how this will work. It looks like it just increases the spread. So when you're flying through the air, some of your pellets might drift off to the left or the right, missing your target. They've also reduced critical hit damage. So that means that you don't actually have to aim at their head. And before, when you were jumping on top of someone or floating a doorway and they come through, you'd get quite a bit of bonus damage and hit them in the head. It was a little bit easier to shut down supers if you hit this, critical damage with your shotgun, and now this is reduced. What they did is increase the body shot damage, so you just have to point it at their chest, and hopefully it kills them. Hopefully you land enough pelts to kill them. We don't have all the numbers yet. Don't freak out until we do. This could mean, however, that shutting down supers is going to be more difficult when using a shotgun. So that is something you need to prepare for. Moving on to hand cannons, they drastically increase the initial accuracy, actually to the year 1 levels. That means if someone is standing still at a distance and you're, standing still or strafing and you pull that first trigger, if you're aimed at him, it's going to hit him. Even at cross-map distances, but there is a massive amount of damage fall off the further you get back. It is to the point where if you're standing at the tree in Bannerfall and they're at the spawn point, looking through the doorways, left or right side kind of thing, you know what I'm saying? You'll do about 30 damage to them, but your shots do look like they're connecting. They tested it at some very large distances. The hand cannon shots were connecting, but they didn't really showcase Bloom. They didn't spam the trigger other than with last word. So what this means to me, looking at it, is Bloom is still there. They kind of said that if you're spamming the trigger, you're going to miss shots, and they actually made it worse. So what I suggest for you with hand cannons is if they're at a distance, slow down your shots a little bit and you're going to be more accurate overall. But if you're up close and personal spamming shots, you might still have issues where even though you're aimed at him and you're pulling the trigger, it just doesn't register. We do need to test this. Do not freak out about it. I think this is a net buff to hand cannons. The fact that you can use it as kind of support fire at a distance, you're going to be very happy with how hand cannons perform in the future. Now with pulse rifles, they increase the rate of fire of the highest impact 2-shot kill pulse rifles. So that's spare change, maybe another one. But for the most part, these are still going to be pretty bad. There's a 5% increase in the shot speed, but these aren't god tier weapons as it is. They are pretty bad overall in the meta. But maybe this change brings them into a usable state. They're going to be pretty good, hopefully, with this change. Because they also added increased accuracy when jumping with pulse rifles, auto rifles, and pretty much every weapon in the game other than hand cannons. Hand cannons were always pretty good. So what they did is they brought up the other guns to a very similar level, with pulses still, unfortunately, not being the best one in the air, but they're definitely better, quite a bit better. We watched it. They're landing a lot more shots. Now, one thing to notice is Clever Dragon and Grass Malik, I think, is the other one that is really, really fast to shoot. They nerfed it by 7.7%. What this means is there's an extra frame in between shots. This reduces the DPS by quite a bit once you start needing 3 and 4 shots to kill someone. So those guns are going to be definitely nerfed. We don't know yet until we use it, but for right now, I'm happy that they're reducing it. They're also reducing the flinch on pulse rifles, so if you're a sniper and someone's shooting you with a pulse, the base damage isn't going to give you as much flinch. And they also nerfed high caliber rounds, so that's going to be a big thing for people using pulse rifles. You're not going to get kind of free wins in your duels because you're flinching people a whole bunch, and you're going to actually be able to snipe against them, hopefully. Now, auto rifles got a buff across the board. Low rate of fire, high damage ones got a massive buff to their damage. They also have a very large boost to their critical hit multiplier. So what this means is if you're landing your crits, you're going to fucking melt people. They showed a couple clips using an auto rifle, and it looked great. It looked fantastic. Very happy with kind of what they're doing with the auto rifles. But if you're using something like a Doctrine of Passing, they did not buff them. They actually nerfed them slightly. So it's gonna slightly reduce the Doctrine of Passing, spraying them in the body DPS, but if you're landing your crits, it's still going to be kind of a net gain overall. They also did buff the in-air accuracy, so if you need to finish someone off with a bullet, you can feel happy knowing that your auto rifle is actually going to connect. Now, the footage in the background is from yesterday, I know, but just deal with it. I don't have time to record any more footage. As for scout rifles, it doesn't look like they're changing anything really, other than high caliber rounds. They were saying that high caliber rounds was broken on certain weapons, and the only guns it really worked on were pulse rifles, so I think they're buffing high caliber rounds for all the other guns, so maybe you've got a scout rifle with high caliber, and it's going to be fun for taking out snipers at a distance. Now, special weapons have a massive change. Sniper zoom doesn't change, flinch doesn't change. I told you about the shotgun changes. Fusion rifles are unchanged. Sidearms usability, for the most part, is unchanged. But when you die, you lose all special ammo. So you can't just run around with a shotgun trading kills with people, because if you die, you lose all your special. So I feel when you're using your special ammo, you're going to use it very defensively. You're going to grab a position like this with a sniper and hold that shit down. You're going to hold down an area with a shotgun. Hold it down with a fusion rifle. With sidearms, when you die, you still get your ammo back, but for all the other ones, your ammo is gone. So you need to play defensive. You need to run around and use your primary, which is going to be interesting. I think there's going to be a lot less people rushing with their shotguns out, because they know if they make a bad engagement, they lose it all. This is going to, I think, improve the amount of people that are trying to take advantage of power positions on the map, because if you have that kind of height advantage or things like that, hopefully you can hold on to that special a little bit longer. Now, another thing to mention about this is there are increases to the amount of special spawning. I think they said every minute. This might slow down gameplay because people are camping with their they're camping waiting for that special ammo, which I think is a mistake. Also, in Trials of Osiris, after you die, you don't get your special back. You don't get it every round. So if you get a sniper's advantage in the first round of Trials, you have a fucking huge advantage against the other team. If you wipe the other team and no one dies and you all are sniping, massive advantage. It's unbelievable how good that advantage is. Even if you have a shotgunner, he can be so aggressive knowing that they don't have any sort of special ammo. It's gonna be very interesting to see how it plays out. Now, on top of that, they mentioned that Universal Remote and Icebreaker, they still function the same. You're still going to get ammo from them, so they might be a viable pick in something like Trials of Osiris or really any game mode if you want to use them. Now, one more thing to note is Scories isn't changed. They didn't nerf Scories. They didn't remove Scories. Scories is still going to be an issue. People are going to camp at the back of the map with Super and get more Super, and it's really, really, really annoying. And they didn't even mention it. Well, they're like, hey, what about Scories? And they just said, oh yeah, nothing's changing. So, Scories is still going to be an issue. Blade Dancer got a nerf buff thing. It depends how you look at it. If you're one-on-one against someone and you kill them with your blade, you don't get all of your health back like you used to. However, every time you kill someone, you get kind of a lump sum health boost. So, if you're in the middle of 3 people who are shooting you, you actually get more health from that engagement. You get a big lump sum chunk, you heal up, and if you can kill people in rapid succession, you're going to keep your health relatively full the whole time. You don't rely on it slowly, regenerating, and if people shoot you, it stops the regeneration. So in the middle of a clash engagement, you might come out ahead, but for some engagements like in sweats, you might not actually benefit as much from using Blade Dancer. They also didn't change any of the hit registration or anything like that, so Blade Dancer, in a lot of people's eyes, is nerfed and not good. Understand it. They buffed throwing knives in PvE for the Golden Gun, and that's pretty much it for Hunters. They drastically nerfed the Stormcaller melee. They made it the same distance as other Warlocks. And if you use Amplitude, I'm guessing it just extends it a little bit, maybe a little meter or something like that. But they halved or thirded the melee distance on the Stormcaller. As for Titans, the only change that I saw that I can remember is Juggernaut still has the same amount of damage reduction and all of that, but if you're flying through the air as a Juggernaut, you'll actually lose your shield eventually. So if you're Titan skating, for the most part, I think you'll be okay. I think you'll still keep your shield, but if you're actually, let's say, jumping up on top of a platform or gliding pretty high into the air, you'll lose it. But as long as your feet are kind of touching the ground every once in a while, it should still stay on. We need to test it, obviously. But this just looks like a situation where they're nerfing it. When someone's kind of like, okay, let's say on Bannerfall, if you're down below and you're trying to jump up onto those ledges, they might be nerfing it in situations so you can't be outside, jump up there, have your Juggernaut shield, and then push inside. They're going to remove that Juggernaut shield from you kind of thing. But I don't know. That's pretty much it. That's the big ones. Auto rifles, buffed. Pulse rifles, in-air accuracy buffed. Clever Dragon nerfed. Hand cannons, overall accuracy buffed, it looks like. Blight Dancer is kind of a nerf buff. Warlocks, the only big change is the Stormcaller melee, which is a huge nerf, like a huge nerf. I actually don't think many people will play Stormcaller because you play Stormcaller for the melee, in my opinion. The super is okay, in my opinion, like for like Clash, but for 3v3, I would rather play Nova Bomb 99% of the time, or even for Rumble, I think I would rather play Nova Bomb now. My final thoughts, I've broken down kind of what's happening. My final thoughts are, if you're playing Rumble and things like that, you're going to have a lot better time if you're good with a primary. People trade kills all the time in Rumble. People are rushing in, trying to kill very quickly, and people die a lot in Rumble. People are getting 20 deaths and 21 kills and winning the game kind of thing, right? So you're not going to have as many situations where people are just aping around, running around with these shotguns, continually trading kills and getting score. If you die, you don't have your special, and you're going to rely on running around with your primary and really dueling. If you like to duel, if you like games like Halo, where you rely very heavily on your primary, I think the changes that they made are going to be a net game for you. All primaries overall are going to be better. That means that you can use auto rifles in more situations. You can use hand cannons in more situations and feel confident using them. And so if you do like those duels, you like strafing, you like primaries, you're going to be in a very good position to succeed in this new meta. It's going to be, a primary meta. There's going to be a little bit of slowed down gameplay because of the special changes, and the people that can't adjust, they want to use shotguns 24/7, they're going to be camping those specials. They're going to be playing it slow. They want those specials. One thing I want to mention is No Land Beyond Sidearm. Kid Jehovah said it in the DMs just a couple of minutes ago. He's like, holy shit, No Land Beyond Sidearm is going to be so good, and it really is. There aren't going to be people with shotguns to push you if you get a kill on them. If you get a kill on them, they're not going to have a 1,000-yard stare or her benevolence or something like that sniping back at you. So what you're going to run into is people running No Land Beyond, having that range advantage with the sniper. They have the sidearm to be a great dueler against primaries. And overall, No Land Beyond Sidearm could be a top-tier pick for pretty much every playlist, but especially Trials of Osiris. It's going to be an absolute monster in Trials of Osiris. Now, overall, as I said before, this is going to be, I think, a little bit more of a primary meta. There's not going to be as much rushing. There's not going to be as much jumping in the air, shotgunning, and things like that. It's going to be more strafing. There's going to be a lot more strafing and dueling. So if you're good at that, you're going to succeed in this meta, I think. You're going to have a great time in this meta. If you're not, you're someone that runs around with a shotgun, you'd better fucking practice. You better get into it. You better get that primary out or you're going to struggle. I really do think that some people in this game are going to struggle because of these changes. They are not going to thrive the way they have. I think there's going to be a larger skill gap. It's a big thing, guys. There's going to be more of a skill gap in this game. You can't run around like this piece of shit just sticking people and using hammers 24/7. But there's going to be a lot more emphasis on gun skill, mobility, things like that, okay? I like the changes because I'm not going to get shotgunned as much. I like the changes because of the way I play the game. But I know that a lot of these changes aren't the kind of fan favorites. These are not the perfect changes people wanted to see. There are a lot of people that are upset. And I'd love to hear why you're upset or why you're excited for these changes. That's it for me. This is a massive, super long video. But I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.